Welcome back to Second Breakfast and our ongoing television discussions, bringing you the best thoughts, theories, and a literary analysis this side of Montreal.
In this episode, we're discussing Heated Rivalry, or as it's better known, the gay hockey show. Let's get into it.
What an incredible journey this show was. I think I want to start with just like a minute of impressions before we get into the bigger theories and kind of longer points that I know you, Maggie, have to work through here.
That sounds
great.
But
just for impressions. So this was 6 episodes, and it was an absolute roller coaster. The first episode, I think I wasn't quite sold.
And I was with you too. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I adore this show.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And the highs that it reached are transcendent. But the first episode, I didn't love Shane or Ilya.
Right.
I think it took me a minute to be sold on that relationship versus when we got to know Scott and Kip.
Yeah.
I was immediately on board.
Yeah, 5 seconds in, I was like, I would die for these two.
Yeah, and I think that standout episode is as memorable and kind of earth-shattering as that standalone episode in The Last of Us.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
And I don't mean because they're both about a gay relationship.
No,
I just mean
no.
that they're kind of classic. I mean, we used to talk about bottle episodes in Breaking Bad.
Right,
when
right.
they wouldn't have much money, so they would set a whole episode, kind of like a stage play, in one location. And I think thematically and on a character level, that's what the Scott and Kip episode was. Mm-hmm. And I was so enamored by the intensity and fullness of that storyline. But it took me a second to be sold on Shane and Ilya. Mm-hmm. And I think it was because I am such a big fan of challengers.
Yes, that was the toughest comparison, was that, I mean, the show becomes something much more and different than challengers, but that first episode really does feel like a much worse version.
And I don't even mean the music. I don't even mean the plot. I mean the music.
Yeah.
The music just felt like it was pushing me towards challengers.
The music, the style, and the way that they're using sort of the backdrop of sports as sort of a playground for lust. Like, it was interesting, but if I hadn't seen challengers, I think it would have been like, ooh, this is cool. But if you've seen challengers, you're like, oh, well, that was done much better in different version.
I've seen challengers many times and listened to the score a ton.
Yeah.
I'm such like a mega fan of challengers that I think
same.
it was I was almost feeling territorial of like, well, I have to defend the original. I can't like this thing that feels almost redundant. But then once I kind of got over that and met this story on its own terms, as I got to know Shane and Ilya better through the last half of the season, I am so sold on this relationship.
Me too.
An incredible story. I love these characters so much. It reminds me of the first time when you and I started watching Outlander.
Ooh, yeah.
Where we I think at the time, one of our big comparisons for kind of prestige TV that we'd found ourselves instead of, watching when you're growing up was Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. And I always felt about Outlander that it was like if one Game of Thrones storyline was the whole show, because it kind of had the same aesthetic and intensity and brutality of what happens to the characters.
Sure.
And I felt so unbelievably invested in Jamie and Claire in Outlander. I now feel that level of undying dedication to both of these couples.
I know, me too. I'm so invested in them. And like, yeah, this show was so fun to watch, and it was cool to really watch it unfold. And I'm so glad we stuck with it. Honestly, like, again, we weren't big on the first episode, but so many people were saying it was so great, and we were like vaguely interested. So we're like, okay, let's just keep going. And I'm so glad we did. I sort of have 2 directions I want to go with this discussion. I don't know where you want to start. I guess we can just start with just the queer part. Like, I think I want to talk about that first.
Yeah, sure.
Because, there's plenty of queer media that is about being queer, and there's a lot of media that is just happens to feature queer people, but like there's a larger purpose to the story. And I can really appreciate both. But this show, I think, is very much about being queer, mostly I think because of the hockey thing. And so I'm excited to kind of talk about that. Like, I feel like I've seen a lot of, queer media that's like about being queer and about coming out and about coming to terms with yourself. But so much of it is so cliched and boring at this point, honestly, in 2026. Like, yeah, we know homophobia is alive and well, and it has been for a long time, but often it can feel sort of like I've seen all this before. But this felt very refreshing because the homophobia and shame exist, but not in the way that you would expect. Like, it's not a utopian world where it doesn't exist and everybody's accepting and perfect. Like, the point is that they're in this environment where being queer is very much not accepted and very much not a thing you want to even address or talk about. But again, it wasn't the way that you were normally like used to seeing it. Like, for example, like Shane's parents were not homophobic, and for a long time I kind of wondered if they were, and that's why he was afraid to come out. But it's really more that they're just kind of controlling and over involved. And so when Shane is trying to come to terms with his sexuality, it's not about disappointing his parents, it's more about just being comfortable with himself. And I thought that was a nice, I don't know, refreshing thing to see. We also didn't get the like thing that you'd get always where there's like, you know, a closeted, insecure gay guy who, you know, bullies other people for appearing gay or weak. Like, we didn't see any of that. We just saw him just kind of figuring himself out, but not like acting out in that way. We didn't really see any bullying or shaming. And
it was implicit, I think.
Yeah.
There was this pressure that all of these gay hockey players felt to stay in the closet.
Yes.
And I think it was this almost, I mean, projected makes it sound like it's not real. It's not what I mean. But
right.
There was this fear of what would happen if they did come out. But it was almost this hypothesis about the future. It wasn't an immediate thing that was happening in the current moment.
Exactly. And like, you know, the story is set in very specific years. It's like, you know, early 2010s for the most part. It takes place over many years, but that's about where we're at. And so that's a time in Western culture where being gay is becoming more sort of accepted and more people are coming out, and, you know, pride is really, you know, increasing. And then like in 2016, you get the Supreme Court decision about gay marriage in the US. So like it's becoming less of a, it's becoming more accepted, but even still, it's a difficult time. And so if you, as this 2026 audience, are watching this, you know that in the 2010s, there was bullying around people who were gay, especially in, you know, male-dominated sports. Like, you know that. And so you don't need to see it to understand that that's what's going on and to know that that's the world that these characters are existing in. So I thought that was a refreshing way to address it.
Can I jump on something you said a minute ago?
Yeah.
You were talking about the difference between media that is about being queer versus media that has characters who are queer and that there's some sort of larger story that is more of the focal point. I think one of the things I really loved about this show, because it is set in the 2010s, is that it doesn't do what media did in the 2010s, where I felt like every marginalized character, whether it is sexuality or race or anything else, every marginalized character had to be this kind of perfect ideal. And there were two kind of downsides to that. One was this kind of shitty thing people would do online where anytime a marginalized character did something bad, they would insinuate that the artist or storyteller was saying all people of that marginalized background are bad or do something bad in that way.
Yes.
The depiction is different than endorsement thing. And I think media literacy, something you bring up a lot, thank Christ we have moved past that.
Yeah, I really think we have at this point.
I find that agonizing. But it was... I think one of the things that I really liked about the Scott and Kip episode, which I think was episode 3.
It was 3, yeah.
Is that it was the first time we saw someone doing something bad. I think where it really solidified that the show wasn't about perfect, faultless ideals. Even though we do skirt a lot of the more obvious homophobia that I think most queer romances are about dramatically. The moment where Scott wouldn't come to Kip's birthday party, and he knew he was hurting Kip with that decision, but you saw all these other things going on in his head. I loved that they allowed the character to make the wrong decision. And we understood why, but we also completely sympathized with Kip. I think the show did a great job of balancing those two perspectives instead of just idealizing the characters or just making them suffer all the time.
Totally, because we felt torn in the way that the characters felt torn, because you're so upset for Scott because you want him to, you know, be happy in his relationship, but you also don't want his career to get messed up or for him to, you know, not feel comfortable. And then of course you feel horrible for Kip. So yeah, that complicated and that being tugged in different directions, we felt alongside the characters. So we understood all of it. Like, I was mad at Scott and also understood Scott at the same time. And that was beautifully done. I liked how much those two added to the rest of the story. Like, I mean, they largely just serve to... They serve the relationship between Ilya and Shane more than anything else. But I know that this is based on a series of books where they've got their own book, their own story. So I really liked getting to see them there. They were and they were very different from Ilya and Shane as well. It's a totally different kind of relationship, which I thought was really interesting because they fall in love before they really do anything else, whereas Shane and Ilya are just, deeply attracted to each other for years before any love actually comes out of it, which is interesting. I also thought that Ilya's family was really interesting because, his family serves as the like homophobic family who he can't come out to. But it's not just that his like family is homophobic. It's that his family, he's got these like all these difficulties with emotional connection and security with his family. So it's not just, oh, I don't like my family because I'm queer. It's, I don't connect with my family because we have deep, like, emotional, generational trauma that we have not resolved. And then it was also all the complications of, like, the cultural complications of being Russian.
And the financial aspect.
Yes. So I liked that his challenges with his family weren't just about him being queer. It was a lot more than that. So even though this show is very much about being queer, I thought both of our main characters were people beyond their sexual identity. And I think that was especially true with Ilya, and I liked that a lot. Speaking of Ilya, I also really want to talk about his bisexuality. I'm always excited when I see a bisexual character in media because I feel like we don't see them very often. And go ahead.
Sorry, just you reminded me. Remember that Sex and the City episode? We just
where Carrie can't, like, where they just can't fathom bisexuality. Yeah. I mean, usually a bisexual character is like a problem. Like it's a person who you don't trust, or it's a person who is like actually not bisexual and it's just them actually getting comfortable with admitting to being gay or whatever. Like, I'm very tired of seeing that. And again, I'm not saying that every bisexual person has to be represented as this, perfect angel, because Ilya certainly isn't. But I liked the way it was treated in this show, because his bisexuality was not a direct threat to either Shane or Svetlana. Which is the woman that he sort of has this ongoing friendship and connection with. I mean, there's certainly a scene where Shane has to work through it a little bit, but I don't think it was about Shane being uncomfortable with the fact that Ilya was attracted to women. I think it was him being uncomfortable with the fact that Ilya has had sex with other people because Shane
totally.
Hasn't. Yeah. It wasn't about women or men. It was about, do you love me more than anybody else? And I really liked that.
His bisexuality wasn't treated like a narrative problem to be solved.
Right.
Like, I mean, literally the bullshit in that Sex and the City episode is them like screaming, pick a side.
Yeah.
And I love that this show even implicitly never did that.
It doesn't do that. Right. And even like Svetlana is, very cool about it. I loved their relationship, Svetlana and Ilya, because they are such good friends, and she has this understanding of Ilya that Shane's never going to have, both like the cultural and like family, knowledge and experience that Svetlana has that Shane doesn't. She understands Ilya so well, and they've got this, fun, sexy connection, but they know they're not going to be a couple. Both of them know that. And Svetlana was like very kind to sort of urge Ilya along to go be with Shane. And then on the same, on the other side, Rose, the girlfriend that Shane has for a minute.
The movie star.
She was so kind and sweet and just like gentle in helping Shane understand who he is and sort of giving her blessing to like, we don't have to pretend to be together. It's okay. It was nice to see such great allies.
But genuinely supporting him too. And I loved how when she was insisting outside the bar that she actually did want to continue to be friends with him, I thought that was as much her speaking to the audience as it was. It was her saying, I'm not just saying the right thing because I feel like it's what I'm supposed to say. I'm still my own character making a decision, and I care about you and I'm invested in you. I thought that was a great kind of throat clearing of, hey, we're not just doing the tradition. We're not just going to do every rom-com ever has each person in the couple has a friend that they talk about the drama with. I'm not just being that. I'm actually supporting you, and I want to be a sounding board for you. I really loved that.
Yes, and I thought that helped like with the audience as well. Like, I was never threatened by Svetlana or Rose. Like, I was upset because obviously I wanted Ilya and Shane to be together, but I understood the relationships that both of these men had with these women, and so I wasn't like nervous about them messing it up, and I didn't feel like betrayed when Ilya was having sex with Svetlana. Like, it wasn't about his bisexuality. It was about he wants to be with Shane and can't for all these other reasons. I don't know if I've explicitly said it on the show. Friends, I am bisexual. If you listen, you probably have fucking figured it out because I talk about women all the time, but I am. And there's just not a lot of great... Sorry. There's not a lot of great representation out there. It was just nice to see, and I really appreciated it. Sorry. It's usually somebody who is not trustworthy or is wrong about their own identity and is, has to figure it out and, pick a side. And that's just, it's hard. It's very hurtful. And it was nice to not only see a bisexual character who had depth and layers and was interesting and was complicated, but also that they didn't have to name it. He didn't have to do a whole thing. And I think because in the early 2010s, is that a word that people even used? I don't even know. And even still, or, wasn't used commonly. And even still, we were interested in him as a character and not in, trying to figure out and categorize and label him, because for that character, it didn't really matter. What mattered was his dedication to Shane and figuring that out, and less about him trying to solve the problem of his identity. And I just really appreciated seeing that. So much of what you see in the media and in real life from real people encourages you to doubt yourself, right? To encourage you to sort of think like maybe you're wrong about this core part of your identity, and to think that, oh, maybe I'm actually just gay, or maybe I'm actually just straight and I'm just confused. And I appreciated that there was no confusion from Ilya. He was confused about what he wanted in life and if he was really in love with Shane, but he wasn't confused about who he was. And the show didn't encourage us to doubt that about Ilya either. And as a person who experiences a lot of self-doubt in other parts of my life, seeing that portrayed in the media or in a piece of media was just really refreshing and encouraging.
I feel like a few years ago, the arc of Ilya's character would have almost felt like it was trying to solve his bisexuality by having him end up with a man or a woman.
Oh, he finally chose the right one. Like in choosing Shane, he's choosing men and choosing to be gay. And that's not how that works. I didn't choose to be straight by marrying you. I just chose you.
And I think the remarkable thing about this show and this character is that he was so self-conscious. There was so much doubt and decision paralysis throughout every step of his journey, but that never extended to his sexuality.
Right, because he knew that about himself, and that wasn't even a thing to worry about.
Right, and his identity wasn't a plot device.
No, it never was, which is especially amazing in a show that's all about being gay or being queer. It's amazing.
Yeah, I liked that too, and the thing that struck me about Shane's character was kind of the really slow reversal they did over the course of the series, where he starts as the brusque one. He's more confident. He's more experienced. You see that in the first time he hooks up with Shane. He just knows what to do more. And I was worried that was going to make him kind of the dominant player in their entire relationship, where it was always Shane seeking his approval. It was always Ilya doing better when they were playing hockey against each other. And by the end of the series, I guess season, by the end of we're not British, by the end,
series, by the end of the series, innit?
By the end of the season, I loved that Shane was by far more successful in hockey. And Ilya was much more emotionally forthcoming about his feelings for Shane. Both characters evolved in a way that really served the storytelling and deftly avoided any of the traditional cliches in queer representation.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so enamored with that. I have more to say about their sort of arc as characters, but did you have more on the cliche stuff?
Yeah, I did. I mean, honestly, that was my biggest takeaway. Once I settled in and realized how good these characters were and how deep and realistic the writing for the dialogue was, the thing that I admired through every step of this season was the remarkable lack of cliche. And I had this thought before we even finished the season of, this is very intentionally, I think, the least cliche romance I've ever watched or read. And I haven't read the books yet, but I imagine there's the same sort of deftness again. And it's not just about romance, whether it's every fucking Jane Austen adaptation you and I have talked about on this show before. It's not just queer romance. I think you have to take into account the unbelievable success of these books and now this series and talk about popular fiction in general. And I think there's a lack of cliche in all of those departments because it's a romance that isn't chiefly about suffering. Yes, there's this threat of suffering if they come out in a way that isn't accepted, or the way Shane's parents are more brand managers than they are parents for him. You can tell they're thinking about his sponsorships more than... I feel like that's the first thing they consider when he finally does come out to them. And even though it's not all about suffering, this isn't a gay story about illness or scandal or trauma, like so many that we've seen before. I mean, for as much as we talk about horror movies, every time the monster is the person's trauma. Like, it's boring. We're used to that now. But I loved that I still felt like there were incredibly high stakes for these characters. Even though the story was not about their suffering, there were such high stakes, and I felt so invested in them. It was smart. It felt like it had an incredible knowledge, and I'm sure this comes from the books, of the landscape of popular fiction and romance across storytelling. And it avoided the things we'd seen before. And it avoided the things that made every gay story we see the feel-bad movie of the year. And I know there's a place for that kind of thing, for honoring and representing and depicting the level of trauma and difficulty that comes with being queer, especially in America or, I suppose, Canada.
Or Russia.
But I think this was so refreshing, and it felt so intentionally refreshing. It wasn't just, I hadn't thought about a gay hockey story before. That wasn't it. It was the mechanics of the storytelling that felt so fresh. And it was almost this level of wish fulfillment. I mean, we probably twice a week for the last 6 years, we've sat down and talked about some form of storytelling. And I think that has made us incredibly in tune with what usually happens. Normie storytelling, the plot beats that you hit, the 3-act, the 5-act structure, and you do this, you do that, and you get out and everyone has their popcorn and goes home. And I was so hoping for things to happen to these characters. I was hoping for them to get together. I was hoping for them to be able to be honest with themselves and each other, or their parents or their friends. And almost all of those things came to pass. And even though it was this kind of wish fulfillment that kept coming with each episode, it never felt boring. And there was this dramatic crescendo where, as much as you and I watch Prestige TV and get all excited about every new HBO drama, I'm so glad this was on HBO. It's good enough to deserve that vintage HBO label. I think that kiss on the ice at the end with Scott and Kip, that felt fantastical. That felt like wish fulfillment. That felt like the thing you hope for and talk about with your friends that, for whatever reason you brush off, that could never actually happen. And I think that was the most triumphant moment I've seen on TV in years. I mean, genuinely, I was standing up and screaming.
We were literally standing and jumping up and down. We were so excited. It was such a good moment.
I mean, we're here in Texas. We were reacting to this like they react to the Super Bowl.
Yes. And that was my Super Bowl. Yeah.
And I loved that you could see, because the crowd was so loud and there wasn't this internal dialogue that you might get with a novel.
Right.
You could see so much of it on Scott Hunter's face. I forget the actor's name. You could see him wrestling with, is this possible?
Yeah, can I do this?
This feels like it should be, because I'm this professional hockey player, this should be the greatest moment of my life, but it isn't. And what's the one thing that could make it better? And him coming to that decision and running over in the slow walk down the bleachers, all of that was so exciting. And then when it finally fucking happened, it was such like a walk-off home run in storytelling. It was, and I loved the last episode too. I think Ilya and Shane, that episode really solidified how much I love Ilya and Shane. When Ilya puts his little hand on Shane's shoulder in front of the parents and says, "We're lovers."
We're lovers.
It's fucking hysterical, and it's such great storytelling. But I don't think, even if the show continues at this level of quality for 3 or 4 seasons or whatever to go through all the source material, I don't think it could possibly top this moment of Kip and Scott on the ice. It was just so exciting. It was so, I felt this like rush of joy and satisfaction. And it was so thrilling. How did that moment hit you?
It was amazing because I was so invested in those characters specifically, and because it felt like a win for the whole show, but also because it was directly impactful to Shane and Ilya, because they were also watching it with us. They're reacting with us. They're texting each other at first, and then they're both speechless watching it. And then the second it's over, Ilya calls Shane, and Shane just kind of says like, "What the fuck?" And Ilya goes, "I'm coming to the cottage."
Honestly, it reminded me of the like dramatic euphoria from like a storytelling angle that I felt, spoilers, at the season 2 finale of Succession.
Oh yeah,
when Kendall turns on Logan on TV, and then it cuts back to Logan with that little smirk.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, that's kind of, and I'm not saying it's copying or redundant or anything,
no.
but that's kind of what happens here, and it's as good.
Yes, it was such a beautiful like high moment. I mean, yeah, that was my favorite moment of the whole season. But I think, I mean, another moment that really stood out to me was when Ilya's in Russia and he's on the phone with Shane, and Ilya doesn't know how to express himself. He's like having a hard time speaking in English, and Shane just says, "Oh, just talk in Russian. I won't understand what you're saying, but I'll listen."
Is this right after his father dies?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the first time that either of them says "I love you," but of course Ilya says it in Russian, so Shane doesn't hear it. But it was such a beautiful scene. That was when I was like, oh, I'm emotionally really locked in with these characters.
I'll die for these guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you wish that moment, because this is something I was thinking of as it was happening, do you wish that moment wasn't subtitled?
At first I was kind of disappointed that it was, because I thought I might enjoy not really understanding the way that Shane wasn't understanding, but still getting things through tone and facial expression. But I'm glad that we heard it, because I just liked knowing what Ilya was trying to say. And we've had so much like, you know, viewer privilege in like getting to see both Shane and Ilya when they're not with each other. So we are always knowing more than the individual characters do. So no, I liked it. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the first moment when it started and the subtitles popped up, I was a little disappointed. But yeah, I think you're right that we do hold a more privileged position, because we get to see the things ultimately that they're hiding from each other. Mm-hmm. Because Ilya doesn't talk candidly about his relationship with his father for so much of the series. But I think that just made the characterization more deep. That we could see that as open and vulnerable as these guys were together, they couldn't quite fully share their lives.
Yeah, right. And I liked how long it took. And I think this is a nice transition into talking about the sex scenes, because I feel like they did so much of the storytelling here. And I am really excited to talk about that. Just like I'm, you know, always pissed at the way that bisexual people are represented, I'm also pissed at how people talk about sex in TV and movies now.
I'm sorry, I thought you were going into a Patreon plug.
Oh my God, no, I'm not going into a fucking... I mean,
just as I am thrilled to invite you to join our Patreon.
Okay,
$2 a month.
Well, I guess, yeah, join our fucking Patreon. God.
2 bonus episodes. You changed your tone in the way that you do for a Patreon.
No, that was just my transition
This is a bold
voice.
moment.
No,
marketing.
I mean, check it out. Links are in the description. We'll talk about it more later. That feels wrong to really get into it now. Anyway, so I'm frustrated by, and you are too, the way that people talk about sex in movie and TVs now, where they talk about it as being gratuitous and not necessary and like almost like harmful. And sure, there are many sex scenes. There's many. How do I say it? There are many sex scenes, God, that are not very kind to women, and like that sucks.
But
okay,
does that mean it's not part of the storytelling?
No, it doesn't. It serves the story, even if like the way that it's shot doesn't, you know, appeal to you personally or is like upsetting. Like, okay, but they so often are part of the storytelling, and here they really, really were, and I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, if not to do another plug, but if I can push you to the episode we did on what is bad art, in which I mount a spirited defense of 50 Shades Darker.
Yep.
Which I genuinely...
Specifically that one.
The second one, I genuinely think it's a good book, but we talk a lot about these kind of bullshit hot takes that people just repeat, and I don't think anyone interrogates in a real way. And I think the kind of the point of enlightenment you and I have come to doing this 612 times is that nothing is gratuitous.
Right.
That because we don't know authorial intent, especially in a medium as collaborative as television shows. All we can do as audience members is assume that everything is intentional and that everything is part of the storytelling.
Right,
of course,
right.
from what plinth would you say otherwise? So yeah, I reject the whole idea of gratuity in the context of sex, violence, or anything else that offends your sensibilities. I
Yes,
think it's
I
still
agree.
I the story, and I want the story to be as uninhibited as possible.
Even if you don't like it, that doesn't mean it's not contributing to the story. You're allowed to not like it, but I think it's, I think ill-informed to call something gratuitous. Because here...
It's presumptuous as well.
Exactly. But here the sex is doing so much of the storytelling because, I mean, like I said earlier, so much of Shane and Ilya's relationship in the first half of the season is through sex. Like they're not having any like they're not being emotionally vulnerable in conversation. They're not admitting how they feel. They're not really, learning much about each other's lives. They're just connecting sexually. And so the storytelling about their relationship is told in that way. You mentioned earlier, you see Ilya starting out in the much more dominant role because he is the more experienced one. He is also just kind of the driver behind their encounters. He sort of initiates a lot of their, connections. And he's just more comfortable with his own sexuality. But as the story progresses, in the sex scenes, we see Shane start to take more control or experiment with taking more control. I think over the course of their relationship, they sort of figure out where they both want to sit in the like dominant and more submissive roles. But you see Shane getting better at hockey and therefore taking more control in the bedroom. And like, that's really interesting to see. And I also like that in almost every scene, at least the more prolonged scenes, Shane always starts out a little shy or hesitant because he's not very comfortable with his own sexuality or sexual enjoyment yet. And then over the course of the scene, you see him sort of relax and become comfortable with it, which is like, of course, in response to Ilya's like consistent checking in and being, because he knows it's all new to Shane, right? So he's like, is this okay? Is this okay? You like this, and he's not being like, like shy about it. He's just checking in with Shane because he knows it's new to him. And so I liked that consistently we saw Shane hesitant and then relax because that's who he is as a person. He's uncomfortable with vulnerability, doesn't like to, he's very much a people pleaser, wants to make everyone around him happy. And so he's not very comfortable with his own enjoyment. And then he eventually becomes so.
I think I want to kind of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know the right way to say it, but I think when you said that they're not vulnerable at the beginning and it's just a sexual connection, I think that they're not vulnerable verbally.
Yes.
I think that their vulnerability and intimacy is unspoken but physical.
Yes,
I think
you're right.
the way they communicate, the way they are loving with each other before they have almost the ability to say I love you to each other. They are exclusive and they are in love way before they say those things to each other.
You're right. You're so right.
The way we as the audience know that, the way we are told that story is through their sex scenes.
Yes. I'm thinking specifically about the scene at Ilya's house where they're on the couch. And that's the first time they both use each other's first names. Because in every other time that they've spoken, they've referred to each other by their last name. And this is a much more intimate sexual moment between them. And they both freak the fuck out and then Shane leaves. But so it's both them realizing, oh no, I'm in love with you. But of course they don't say it, right? Because they've got all these other challenges that prevent them from being fully open and honest verbally. But you see it happen in them saying each other's names and just in the way that they're connecting sexually. It's really beautifully done. And then of course, like once we get to the cottage, they have started to connect more emotionally in a verbal way. And so they're also much more verbal about what they want sexually. Like Ilya is like asking for things or begging for things versus like before they won't really say what they want. They'll just kind of do it because they're getting more comfortable connecting on a verbal level as well as a physical level. I also think that I think it's their final sex scene or one of their final sex scenes. Their position is particularly intimate. It's their spoon sex scene, which feels very like relationship sex versus like, just like fun, sexy partner sex, if that makes sense.
More of a hookup thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like this feels more like, oh, we're partners now. Like we're like in a relationship. And I just like that the way that those scenes do so much. I'm so invested. They do so much of the storytelling.
It was from doing the Ilya voice.
And like,
I'm always astounded by your vocal range.
Thank you very
much. By the
much.
way, great impression.
Thank you very much. And yeah, of course the scenes are like shot beautifully and like, you know, they're really sexy, but they're telling a story, and I appreciated that so much about them.
Yeah, I reject any objection to the sex scenes. I think it's remarkable the depth of the storytelling that is being done physically. Mm-hmm. And again, to kind of pull it back to Outlander, because I think we've always gravitated towards these prestige dramas that are unafraid of sex being a medium of storytelling. Mm-hmm. Whether it is something like Outlander, which I think does a great job with that.
Yes,
if you look at, I mean, Jamie and Claire kind of have to become married before they even really know each other, just because of the way the plot goes in that story. But even something like Versailles, I think there are plenty of other of these, you know, respected TV dramas that utilize sex and its power of storytelling, of all of the many forms of communication that can pass between two characters that are not verbal.
Right. Like I kind of think that if you were looking at sex scenes in TV and movie as purely gratuitous and not as storytelling, maybe you don't have a great relationship with sex and you gotta work that out. Do you know what I mean?
I think if that's how you're viewing it, you're making it about yourself and not about the story.
You know, sometimes people it does more for your relationship and, you know, personal development rather than just being like sexy and fun.
It's just not about you.
You're right.
Yeah, it's not about you.
Yeah. I think I adored this show. My one complaint is that I know nothing about hockey, like nothing. And I feel like a lot of the difficulty that Ilya and Shane were experiencing and not being able to come out because of the world of hockey specifically, not just like, oh, it's hard to come out in, like, you can't really in Russia, or even it's hard in, you know, the US and Canada in the 2010s. Like, it was very much about the hockey element. And I feel like I needed that explained a bit more. I was like, well, why not? Like, I don't understand. Like, cause like by the time by the time it was like well into the story, they were full adults, like fully like professional players, independent of their families. I was like, why can't you be together? Like, I don't understand.
Okay, so this is interesting because I did grow up with hockey.
Right.
And, you know, Providence Bruins, Boston Bruins, even kind of smaller time teams than that, just because I'm from New England. And I've been to a bunch of hockey games. I love watching hockey. I think it is the most fun sport to physically attend, because there is such energy in the crowd, because you get the fights, and if you're up close against the glass, people, you know, bounce off the fucking walls right next to you, or they punch each other in the teeth and blood, and it is an incredibly visceral, fun sport. That said, if you were to give me a pop quiz on the rules of hockey, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Sure. I know where the puck goes, and I know that they pass it to each other, and they got the ice skates, and whatever, it's yellow, black, and white. That's fine. You are, being from Texas, you know more, or you've spent more time around things like football or softball. And I think the fact that the show doesn't teach you about hockey is the same reason that Challengers doesn't teach you about tennis. Well, everyone has enough of an ancillary understanding of sports culture, even if they don't know the rules of a particular sport, that I imagine you were just grafting football culture and the kind of rights and wrongs and moralizing within that culture onto this, and that's how you understood the restrictions that professional players faced.
Yeah, I guess so. But even like it wasn't really about the rules of the game. I mean, even if this had been football, for example, I'd still be like, well, why can't they just be gay? Like, I know that there aren't...
you know the culture around it.
I think I just needed a bit more explanation of the culture, because it seems like hockey especially is like very homophobic. Well, and I just don't think I fully understood that until the very end, where I just kind of had to guess that myself.
I mean, I think part of it is the international lens of the show, where you see much more blatant homophobia from the Russian side of things than you do from the Canadian side of things.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of more what it leaned on. But even just from your football awareness or any other major sport, the like rigid heteronormativity of all of that, I mean, homophobia in its literal sense of like fear of anything queer.
Sure.
I think everyone kind of comes to the show understanding that, and you can graft on whatever your sports experience or awareness is.
Yeah, I just feel like there were a couple moments where I was like, but why? And maybe
you know why? It's the same reason. It's the same reason movie stars or other celebrities are cagey about their sexuality.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So I mean, this is a very minor complaint, but I think I just needed a bit more context. I mean, I think the Kip and Hunter episode helped me understand it a bit more, but even still, I was like, Hunter, come on, just your parents aren't in the picture. Just like, come out. What's the deal?
I think the way that the show tried to frame this for the audience was through Shane's parents.
Yeah.
And I think it was the brand deals. It was
Okay.
every time they saw him, it was about, well, are you going to go to Wimbledon with a girl?
I see. Yeah.
So that people know that you're... In the same way, I think the U.S. has never elected a president who isn't married.
Yeah.
You know, or there's the aversion to like facial hair, and you're aware of these things. And I thought the show framed that kind of in the margins with characters like Shane's parents.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, it was a small thing, but
It's not illegitimate. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, one of my favorite things that has happened as a result of this show is, you sent me this story the other day, is seeing this show have a direct impact on like actual people, not just me, right? But
Are you not a person?
No, I'm saying beyond me, the actual
not
person.
just podcasters,
not real people. Because so Jesse Cortium, not sure. He's a real life hockey player. He came out as gay in response to this show. Like he directly like attributes him feeling comfortable or brave enough to do it was because of this show. And like I'm just blown away by that. And I think that art is so important and it has such an impact and it is so powerful. And for a long time I was sort of irritated at the representation matters phrase, because yes, of course it does, but I've been frustrated at the like attributing representation to like equating that with the quality of the thing, because you can have good representation in a terrible movie. That doesn't make the movie good. But this happens to be a very good TV show with a beautifully told story that has all this great representation. So all of that packaged together makes it so impactful, and I'm really excited by that.
Do you remember when Glee first came out? And I remember kind of the... Yeah,
I was there when it was written. I read the deep text.
Remember when Quinn was goth for one episode?
Oh, yeah.
That was a formative moment for me.
Me too.
I remember the line everyone would say as the show became really zeitgeisty was, what's everyone gay at that high school? And my response was always like, yeah. And more people that you know are gay than you are aware of.
Yes.
And I'm so excited because as this show continues to become successful and we get more seasons and hopefully we get more, the breakout stars that this show has given us, the careers we now get to follow of these incredible, thrilling actors. I know there's going to be the joke, and you and I even say this walking through bookstores, of like the number of gay hockey books that we see now.
They're everywhere.
And I know people are going to start saying, what's every hockey player gay? And I'm excited for that because I think the way that representation does matter, and we've talked about this before, is how media, especially in pop culture, can normalize things. Mm-hmm. And there's a beautiful quote that I heard, Kermode and Mayo, the fantastic film review podcast. They used to be the presenters on BBC. Mm-hmm. And they talk about this quote all the time from Roger Ebert. And it's talking about movies being a machine that produces empathy. Mm. And that the power of storytelling, specifically, he was looking through the cinematic lens there, was that it lets you empathize with a person who's different from you, to see their life and how they see things. Mm-hmm. And I'm so thrilled for this continued kind of, normalization. I really hate that fucking word because it does sort of, it almost seeds
it's sort of giving up. It has to be normal for it to be okay.
But there's also this implication that there's something abnormal about being gay or being queer,
right?
And that we have to somehow sanitize that for the mainstream,
make it normal so that it's acceptable.
Yeah, and I want it to be much more forcible than that. And not deferential and meek.
And the word queer means not normal. It means anti. It means against the norm.
And
that's
I hate
the
that.
point of the word. But I'm saying like it doesn't have to be normalized to be okay.
Yeah, but I think there's a concession within that word that pisses me off.
Oh, okay. Within the word queer, you mean?
No, just within this starting point of you are strange and other and threatening and abnormal. Mm-hmm. I don't like that at all. But I'm excited for the success of this show and the empathy and understanding that it can promote, because I think the number of friends I had, either from New England or from Texas, because I bounced around during high school, who got to college, met people who weren't like them, and stopped being idiots. That just exposure to difference can make you a more well-rounded and I don't know, accepting person can make you less of a bigot.
Yes, and make you understand yourself better. Like, it's not that the people, we're not turning people gay by having gay media.
And I love that there was nothing meek about the representation in this show. It didn't feel sanitized. Like, you and I watched through 6 Feet Under. Absolutely incredible storytelling.
Beautiful show, yeah.
But it was that era, and I think you have some of this in Modern Family as well, where there's a prominent gay relationship. Both of those shows have a prominent gay relationship. But the actual representation on screen, they pull the punch.
Yeah.
Cam and Mitch barely kiss on screen. Usually there's like a weird hug as they leave the frame.
They also barely talk about their sexual relationship, like much less so than like our other, straight characters.
Yeah, and there are fewer, if any, sex scenes of those characters compared to your straight couples.
Right.
And I love the kind of flat equality, the declaration of this is who these characters are and this is what they do. And there's nothing apologetic. There's nothing meek about it.
Right.
And it comes from this kind of confident, beautiful position. Yeah, I found this incredibly refreshing in almost every department.
Yes.
Love this show.
Me too. I think it's the last thing I'll say is I was so happy when we realize that Ilya is bisexual, right? You see him with Svetlana, or maybe it's another girl. I don't know. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Every time I see something like that in TV or movies, like you see somebody who you think is either gay or straight, and then you get evidence that they are not. I'm always like, ooh, a bisexual person. How exciting. But then I also have this fear of maybe that's not what it is. Maybe instead this is like proof that they're wrong about themselves, or that they haven't figured themselves out yet, or this is a problem to be solved. Often that's what happens. It's, oh no, the character's not bisexual. It's they haven't realized they're gay, or, well, they have to be with women because of X, Y, and Z, or, oh, actually, like him being with Shane is him realizing he's gay. And like, I was just really happy that was not what happened. And I was so glad that fear of mine did not come true in this instance. This is a beautiful show. I loved it so much.
You think you want to read the books?
Oh yeah. 100%. I will definitely be reading. Probably listening. Usually with romance books, I like to do audiobooks just because I don't know. But also, honestly, it's because a lot of times they aren't written well. But I'm hoping and I'm guessing that this is written well. So maybe I will actually enjoy sitting down and reading. We'll see. But yeah, listener, let us know what you thought of Heated Rivalry if you've seen it. If not, we kind of spoiled the whole thing, but it's so worth a watch.
Yeah, now that we're 45 minutes into the episode, we didn't introduce the show.
Oh, it's two hockey players who are gay. You know what? Fucking, you figure it out. You can read a premise online. Here, let me read you the premise from IMDb.
600 episodes.
Are you ready? Two rival hockey stars at the top of their game face an unexpected challenge when they develop feelings for each other, complicating their careers and the sport's expectations. There you go.
All right, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Check out our Patreon. Check out Cam's latest book, Lemon Tarts in Space. It's a lot of fun, and it's also a great audio listening experience. But it's written beautifully, so do go check that out. I guess that's all. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you here next time with a brand new episode.